Have you ever found yourself endlessly texting her, hoping for a response, only to feel more frustrated and drained as time goes on? You keep reaching out, but she's either distant or completely silent. It's a tough place to be in, and you might be wondering, what's going wrong? There's an old piece of advice that says, the more you chase, the further you push her away. It might sound harsh, but it holds a powerful truth. In this video, I'm going to break down why you should never text her again and how doing so will actually help you regain your power and stop the emotional roller coaster. By the end, you'll understand how to shift the dynamic in your favor, stop over-investing emotionally, and start creating the healthy distance that leads to stronger connections. Stick with me till the end, you won't want to miss the crucial insights. She lost interest or respect. Let's face it, when someone loses respect or interest in you, things change. You can feel it. It's that subtle shift in energy, like when you've been talking to someone for hours, and then suddenly, you realize the conversation is one-sided. You're carrying it, you're pushing, and they're just not there. Have you ever had that moment when you were texting someone and you could just tell? They used to be excited to hear from you, responding in minutes, maybe even hours. But now, days pass, and the replies are short, almost indifferent. I've been there. We all have. You can start to feel it, like a cold breeze creeping in where warmth once was. And that's when the real truth hits, she's lost respect or interest. Now, let me be clear here, when respect fades, it's not always because you did something wrong, sometimes it's simply because things evolved, and one person outgrew the dynamic. It's tough, right? Because you've invested time, energy, and emotional effort. And maybe, just maybe, you think there's still a chance to salvage it. So you text more. You reach out, hoping for that spark again. But here's the thing, the text you send isn't going to bring back the respect. The constant checking in, the waiting by your phone hoping for a reply, it's not going to change the fundamental issue. And sometimes, you have to ask yourself, is this respect I'm trying to get back even worth it anymore? You see, when respect is lost, it's like trying to keep a plant alive when it's already withered. No amount of water, sunlight, or fertilizer is going to make it bloom again. Same with relationships. People aren't static, and neither are their feelings. Maybe she respects you for a while because you're confident, funny, or grounded. But when you start acting out of desperation, trying too hard to impress, that respect starts to slip. She starts seeing through the act. And it's uncomfortable, right? Because you thought you were doing the right thing. You thought that persistence, that extra effort, might tip the scales in your favor. But think about it, how many times have you respected someone for their self-respect, their boundaries, and their ability to move on when things weren't working? Think about all the people you admire, whether it's a celebrity, an author, or just someone in your life. What do they all have in common? They don't beg for respect. They don't chase after it. It's earned, it's given freely, and if it's lost, no text is going to bring it back. One of my favorite quotes is from the renowned author and speaker, Brené Brown, "The opposite of belonging is fitting in." We're born to stand out, not blend in. When we start trying to fit into someone else's idea of what we should be, especially in a relationship, we lose that authentic respect. It's exhausting to constantly adjust who you are to earn someone's approval. And guess what? It doesn't work. It never does. Now, I know it hurts. It stings. The idea that someone you cared about, someone who once looked at you with admiration, could now be indifferent to you. But here's the thing, that indifference, it's not the worst part. The worst part is continuing to engage in a cycle where you're trying to win back something that's already gone. You're fighting a battle that's not even yours to fight. And the only way to get out of that loop? Stop texting. Stop chasing. You'll find someone who respects you, not because you're begging for it, but because you're respecting yourself enough to let go when the time comes. And that's the key. If you respect yourself enough to walk away when respect has faded, you're on the right track. When you stop texting her, you're not giving up, you're moving forward. And moving forward is how you get back to being the person you were before you lost sight of yourself in the first place. So, take a deep breath. Close the text thread. Walk away. You'll thank yourself later. You're allowing her to control your emotional state. It's wild, isn't it? How one person, one single person, can so easily start dictating how you feel. You're going about your day, minding your business, and then you get that notification. Ding! Your heart races, your mind spirals, and suddenly, everything you were doing before gets a little hazier. The moment you see her name on the screen, your mood swings like a pendulum. And for what? A text. A single message that doesn't even belong to you yet. And here you are, waiting, hanging on her every word like it's the air you breathe. I've been there. I'm sure you've been there too. And it's a strange thing when you think about it, how you let someone else take the reins of your emotions. It's as if you've handed over the steering wheel of your life and said, "Hey, you drive." And why? Because you're hoping, deep down, that this text, the one that may come, will somehow reset everything. It'll make you feel wanted, seen, valued. It'll put you back on solid ground. But here's the kicker, you're not in control anymore. You're reacting. You're letting her determine whether you're going to feel good or bad, calm or anxious, excited or disappointed. It's like being on an emotional roller coaster, and you're just strapped in, hands up, hoping for the best. But all you're doing is putting your emotional well-being into someone else's hands, and that's not freedom, man. I remember a time when I was in this loop. I'd send a message and then check my phone every minute to see if she'd replied. The silence would gnaw at me. When the reply came, it was either exactly what I wanted to hear or, just as often, it wasn't. And that feeling, the disappointment or the overblown joy, was so dependent on her words. That's when I realized it. I was letting my happiness, my mood, my self-worth, hinge entirely on someone else's actions. Not on who I was, but on whether or not she liked me back in a given moment. That's when I took a step back and asked myself, what the hell am I doing? What I had been doing, in essence, was letting her control my emotional state, whether intentionally or not. It's like giving someone the keys to your car, but then letting them drive you to places you don't want to go. Every time I checked my phone, I wasn't living in the present. I wasn't focused on what mattered to me. I was entirely fixated on her response, trying to figure out where I stood with her, trying to get validation in all the wrong ways. And I'm not even sure she realized how much power I was handing over to her. It wasn't until I read something by Eckhart Tolle that hit me like a ton of bricks. He said, anything that you resent and strongly react to in another is also in you. Let that sink in. The very fact that I was reacting to her, whether it was joy or frustration, meant that I wasn't emotionally stable within myself. I was allowing my peace to be stolen by something as simple as a text message. Here's the hard truth. When you give someone else the power to control your emotions, you lose your sense of self. You're letting external circumstances dictate how you feel. And that's no way to live. I realized I had to find my own sense of worth outside of how anyone else saw me. When you're emotionally independent, your happiness, your peace, your energy isn't tied to another person's actions. And that's a kind of freedom that feels like a weight being lifted off your chest. So, what do you do? Well, first, stop texting. Stop allowing yourself to wait for validation from someone who's not valuing you in return. Take that power back. Start finding joy in things that you control. Invest in yourself. Build your self-worth from within, and you'll see that the next time your phone rings or buzzes, it won't have that same control over you. You'll be okay regardless of whether she texts back. In the end, this is about your peace. When you stop letting someone control your emotional state, you start living for you. And that's the life you deserve. You're giving her too much power over your life. It's wild how much power we can hand over to someone without even realizing it. We don't even have to consciously do it, it just happens. One day, you're texting her, maybe just casually at first. You're sending a message, getting a reply, exchanging words. It feels natural. But slowly, without even noticing, you start giving her more control. And you might not even see it at first. It feels small, like checking your phone a few times a day, waiting for that reply, thinking about her between work meetings or while you're out with friends. It's just a text, right? But the more you let that simple thing dictate your mood, your day, your thoughts, the more power you've given her. And here's the thing, when you start to live your life based on how she might respond, you've already lost a part of yourself. You're not in control anymore. Your happiness is being decided by someone else's actions, and that's a dangerous game. It's like handing someone a remote control to your life, and every time they text back, you change the channel. Your mood switches on a dime. You wait for the next message like it's some sort of reward. But the problem is, you're never in control of the remote. I've been there. I remember a time when I was constantly checking my phone, obsessing over every notification. My mind would race. Did she see the text? Did she like my message? Why hasn't she replied yet? It was a loop that would just repeat itself. And here's the harsh reality I had to face. I was letting my emotional state, my self-worth, my peace of mind, rest entirely on whether or not she responded. That's a lot of power for one person to hold. Too much power. And, honestly, it's not fair to either of you. Because here's the kicker, when you give someone else that much influence, it's not just your peace of mind that suffers. It starts to erode your sense of identity. You begin to define your value based on how they respond to you. Your happiness becomes tied to her approval. You start putting on a mask, tweaking your messages, acting in ways that you think will get the response you want. And over time, you forget who you were before you started seeking validation from her. This is a common trap we fall into. It's easy to think that by texting more, by showing more effort, by trying harder, we'll win someone over. But what happens in reality is that we're just giving them more control over us, without even realizing it. And here's the crazy part, it doesn't work. The more you chase, the more you give, the less you get in return. That's because true attraction, true connection, comes from a place of mutual respect, not desperation. In the words of the famous philosopher, Friedrich Nietzsche, he who has a why to live can bear almost any how. When you give someone that much power, you forget your own why you're worthy of love, respect, and attention. Your purpose gets clouded by waiting for that next text, and you lose sight of the bigger picture. You lose sight of your own value. So, what's the solution? It's simple, take back control. Stop letting her determine how you feel about yourself. Reclaim your life. Invest in yourself. Find fulfillment in your own achievements, your own journey. When you do that, you stop needing validation from anyone else. You'll be able to go through your day without waiting for that text. You'll start feeling complete on your own, not because of someone else's responses. You deserve more than to be someone's emotional roller coaster. You deserve to be the driver of your own life. And when you stop texting her and stop waiting for her validation, you're not losing something, you're gaining something. Your own freedom. Your own peace. Your own power. It's hindering your personal growth and independence. Let's talk about something that often gets overlooked when we're stuck in the cycle of waiting for her text, personal growth. Or rather, how constantly texting her is actually slowing it down. I know, it's not easy to hear, but hear me out. When you're focused on waiting for her to reply, checking your phone every few minutes, obsessing over the perfect thing to say, something important is slipping through your fingers. Your personal growth. Your ability to grow as an individual, independent of someone else's approval or attention, is being put on pause. I've been there more times than I'd like to admit. And what I realized, in hindsight, was that I wasn't really living my life. I was letting someone else's actions control my direction. Every time I'd check my phone, I was looking for validation. I was looking for a sign that I was enough. That if she just texted me back, I'd feel worthy. I'd feel seen. But what that did, over time, was take me further from who I really was. It took me away from my own personal journey. It stopped me from growing, from learning how to thrive on my own. Personal growth is about stepping outside of your comfort zone, facing challenges head-on, and learning to stand on your own 2 feet. But when you're constantly tethered to your phone, constantly waiting for someone else to dictate your mood and your next move, you're not moving forward. You're stuck. And it's subtle. At first, it doesn't seem like much. But you start to notice that the things that once excited you, your hobbies, your passions, your goals, start to fade into the background. Because you're spending all your energy on this one person, this one dynamic, this one possible connection. This was something I had to really come to terms with. I remember a time when I felt like I was so close to breaking through in certain areas of my life, whether it was work, fitness, or just mental clarity. But every time I would get a text from her, or the silence between texts would stretch, my focus would go right out the window. I'd get anxious, my thoughts would spiral, and the energy I could have poured into myself was being wasted on her. It's easy to justify it. You think, oh, it's just a text. I'll just check one more time to see if she responded. But then you're back in the loop again. You're thinking about her, what she might be doing, why she hasn't replied. And with every moment you spend on her, you're not spending it on yourself. And you're not building the life you want to be living. In fact, there's a quote by Tony Robbins that really struck me when I was in that place: the only limit to your impact is your imagination and commitment. When your imagination is consumed by thoughts of her, when your commitment is split between your own goals and waiting for a response, you're limiting your potential. You're not allowing yourself to focus fully on your own growth, your own dreams, and your own success. What if you could redirect that energy into something else? What if you stopped giving her so much space in your mind and started giving that space to yourself? Imagine what you could accomplish. Imagine how different you'd feel waking up, knowing your day isn't hinged on what she's going to do. You could start moving toward things that are going to challenge you, things that will push you to grow, evolve, and become the best version of yourself. The truth is, when you stop texting her, when you stop letting this situation control you, you take back that power. You get to make your own decisions, set your own goals, and start working towards something that's about you. That's how you become independent, not just financially or socially, but emotionally and mentally. Personal growth happens when you stop waiting for someone else to dictate your worth, your mood, and your time. It happens when you choose yourself first, and you stop letting external things, whether it's someone else's attention or lack thereof, hold you back from being who you're meant to be. So stop texting her. Stop waiting for her validation. Start living for you again. Your future self will thank you. You're clinging to a past that no longer serves you. You know what's really painful? Clinging to something that no longer exists. Holding onto a past version of a relationship that's long gone. And that's exactly what you're doing when you're constantly texting her, hoping things will go back to the way they were. You're looking at the past through rose-colored glasses, desperately trying to recreate something that's already changed, already faded, and it's draining you. I've been there, man. We all have. It's that cycle of replaying old memories, those good times, those moments where everything seemed perfect. You know the ones I'm talking about, the late night conversations, the inside jokes, the way she smiled when she looked at you. It's easy to get caught up in that. You start thinking, if only I could have those moments again. So, you text. You reach out. You try to revive something that's already passed. But here's the thing, when you're texting her, you're not living in the present. You're not moving forward. You're stuck in the past. And what happens when you keep clinging to that past? You start to lose sight of the present, of who you are now. You stop growing. You stop evolving. You begin to define yourself by what you used to have instead of who you're becoming. I've caught myself doing this too many times to count. The constant checking my phone, hoping for a reply. The constant thinking, maybe if I text one more time, things will shift back to the way they were. But every time I did that, I was just reinforcing this cycle of nostalgia. I was holding onto something that was never coming back. It's tough to let go. Trust me, I get it. But here's a hard truth, holding onto the past only keeps you stuck in it. You're not giving yourself the chance to heal, to move on, to build something new. In a way, you're cheating yourself out of your own potential. There's so much waiting for you in the present, but you can't see it because you're so fixated on an idealized version of the past. In the book The Power of Now, Eckhart Tolle talks about how we can trap ourselves in the past or future and miss the beauty of the present moment. The past gives you an identity and the future holds the promise of salvation, of fulfillment in whatever form. Both are illusions. When you're texting her, when you're clinging to the past, you're buying into that illusion. You're letting a memory of what was define who you are today. But the truth is, the past doesn't have the power to shape your future unless you let it. I remember a time when I was stuck in that loop, texting someone I had dated for months. We had great chemistry, and there were so many moments where everything felt right. But we weren't in the same place anymore. We weren't growing together. And yet, I'd still try. I'd reach out, hoping that if I just said the right thing, we'd pick up where we left off. But all I was doing was holding onto something that wasn't there anymore. I had to learn that sometimes the hardest thing to do is let go. And when I finally did, I felt lighter. Free. Like I was no longer bound by a past that didn't serve me. Letting go isn't about forgetting. It's not about dismissing the good times. It's about accepting that those moments are part of your story, but they don't have to define your future. You deserve to create new moments, new connections, new memories that are based on who you are now, not who you were. You're not the same person you were when that relationship started, and neither is she. So, why keep texting her? Why keep holding onto something that's gone? You can't move forward while you're looking backward. So, take a step back. Stop texting. Stop chasing something that's already passed. Start living in the present. You have so much potential waiting for you. And that potential? It's not found in the past. It's found in what you do next, in who you become. And that's why you should never text her again. Sometimes, cutting ties is the best thing you can do for your growth and well-being. If you found value in this video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more life-changing content. Drop a comment below if you've ever had to make this tough decision, and let me know how it changed things for you. Remember, your peace of mind and personal growth always come first. Stay focused, stay disciplined, and I'll catch you in the next one.